You're listening to Straight from the Heart, the official podcast of Heartland Black Chamber of Commerce, where we will get to the core of what really matters in Kansas City. From business and politics to culture and community, we're having the real conversations that connect us, build us, and move us forward. I'm your host, Kim Davis, and this is Straight from the Heart. Now, today, I want to just vent. I want to start off with gerrymandering. What is gerrymandering? I mean, everybody is out here talking gerrymandering, and you really don't know what it is. And because you don't know what it is, you don't even speak on it or have a sound voice. I think today we are going to get to the bottom of gerrymandering and how it affects us, because I don't think you even understand that. Today with me, I have my good friend, and I know a lot of you know him, Khalid, and I am going to mess it up, but Abdulqaadir.
That's it.
And
That's perfect.
He is one of the few people that I know that can speak intelligently on this subject. So let's dive into this. Let's really talk about it. Gerrymandering is this big deal. We know that one of the main words used in gerrymandering, and this is what got me the most, is manipulate.
Okay.
In every single definition that I went to, it said it is a manipulation. And so let's start there.
Yeah, not knowing like the history of gerrymandering, I don't know where the name comes from. Like if it was a guy named Jerry who actually did it first, but
actually it was a governor.
It was a governor.
It was a governor.
Was his name Jerry?
His last name was Jerry.
Okay, well that makes sense. So basically, what it is a redrawing of congressional maps in a particular state. Various reasons why it could happen, but the main reason why it happens is when one political faction is interested in having more elected officials in that state. And so that's what we're dealing with now. Republicans are interested in doing it because they're looking at a potential situation next year where they lose control of the House. And from what I understand, Democrats are kind of doing it in response to that. And so that's kind of the situation that we're in now.
You know, the funny thing about this, and yes, Straight from the Heart is going to be straight. And we are going to speak on things that a lot of people aren't going to like. So I'm just going to throw it out here. You know, we're saying that it is a Republican ideal to be able to maintain control of the House.
Right.
And the Senate, basically, but for sure the House. And what they're wanting to do is they want to take a predominantly minority community and bust it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Regardless of the fact that the congressperson that has been serving this district for 11 years has done amazing things to move the needle across the entire district. So now they want to bust it up, and they want to take control, they say, to make a bigger voice and to have a better representation.
Right.
But if we really, really dig down deep into this thing, we know it's political, and we know it is not a party thing. It is more of a White House thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are afraid to speak on it, but the U.S. president, who has said during his campaign, once you vote for me, you get me in this time, you won't have to vote again. So I'm kind of concerned on this gerrymandering because I see it bigger than just redistricting and silencing the voice of the people, because that's what it's doing. I heard yesterday that the representative that is introducing this bill saying that what it will do is give the legislators the voice to make a decision for the people, whether the people agree with that or not.
Right.
So what do you think about that?
Yeah, so It is definitely originating from the White House. It started with Trump's conversation with the governor of Texas, and then it's just kind of expanded from there. As far as Missouri goes, I forget what the law is that we have that allows like the general public to vote on specific things for the Missouri Constitution. And so they're trying to remove that aspect in order to allow this gerrymandering process to happen. And coming from the governor himself, in the governor's opinion, you know, he views Missouri as a red state. And so they believe that the gerrymandering represents more of the values that are prevalent in Missouri. But the counter argument to that is, if your values are so prevalent, why do you have to gerrymander?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think one of the things is it requires a majority across the board. And what they wanted to do now is require 2/3 of the vote in every district.
Right.
So it won't be a majority based on the state. It would be the majority based on 2/3 of the majority in each district would make the decision.
Right.
And for me, it almost seems like we're using gerrymandering as a cover-up for the breaking of the Constitution, not just in the state of Missouri, in the states around the United States, and then the U.S. Constitution. We have and I've heard this said, and I'm probably going to get shot down for this, but that's okay. We have a Supreme Court that is appointed and elected and appointed to uphold the law, now breaking the law. And no one's really wanting to speak on that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to gerrymandering, the stacking of the deck, the manipulating of the system, the breaking or taking the voices of the people. And this is not just going to affect race, even though most gerrymandering from history was based on race and social economic status.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, what I think of is, I don't know what year it was exactly, but Joe Biden's administration did propose legislation to get rid of gerrymandering, and all Republicans voted against it. And so if we are in a quote unquote free democratic society, then we would look at the natural lay of the land. We would look at each individual household, each individual street, each neighborhood, block, so on and so forth, and how the voting, the natural voting patterns of those areas, just how they lay. People are free to move and people are free to vote, obviously. And then we would base our districts on that. Would be a much more, you know, democratic approach. But when you start to take it into your own hands, and the clearest sign is like you mentioned earlier, what they did with Kansas City and Jackson County in general, is to split it into 3 different districts and take, you know, the third, a third, and a third of each of those democratic sections, and then to put those people into large swaths of the rural community to change the nature of the outcome, the voting outcome. So, you know, the question was posed to a Republican congressman. I can't remember who the congressman was who asked the question, but they kind of reminded the Republican congressman that, you know, how are you going to respond to this when the shoe's on the other foot?
Correct.
You know, so in the event a Democratic administration takes over, do they then also have full carte blanche to come in and just fully redraw all the districts and do things of that nature? And would that be acceptable on the other end?
Crickets, of course.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and on the bigger side of that, I don't think they feel like that they will ever lose the house again.
That's definitely the way they're behaving.
They're behaving like, oh, this is a done deal, and y'all will never see the light of day again. And so, my next big question is, when we think about the average person, the everyday person that just does not get this information or even understand it, hear gerrymandering and be like, oh yeah, that's another one of those political things that they're talking about, and really don't understand how it's going to affect them down the line. What do you say to that?
I tell people all the time, I describe America like a ship, and you don't have to have been in the Navy or anything to understand what a boat is, a vessel on water. But if you're on a boat with other people and you're in the water, what one person does on that boat, it affects everybody. And so America is like a series of interlocking ships that gets bigger and bigger as it goes out. So you have your household is a ship.
Yeah.
Right? If your parent engages in certain activities, does certain things, positive or negative, it's going to impact the home financially, morally, whatever the situation is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that same event happens on your block, in your neighborhood, you know what I mean?
You're absolutely
right.
And
it goes out to the state and then to the country.
Yes.
And so gerrymandering, and I try to get a lot more young people, really. And actually, to be fair, young people are engaging in the political process more, I think.
Yeah.
But just starting with my immediate family, just trying to get them to engage more and understand what's happening around them and what these things mean. And to use my boat analogy again, I explain to them it's like being on a ship and not caring what the captain is doing.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't care where the boat's being steered. Are you going to hit an iceberg? What's happening here?
Yeah.
And so you need to be aware of the direction that you're going in, because as a country, as a people, as a state, as a county, a district, or whatever it is, you are directly going to be impacted by the movements of the leadership, regardless of where you are on that scale.
Yeah. So I had a lot of friends that were in Jeff City yesterday, and they were protesting, and I had some conversations. And the interesting thing that they found, the number of Republicans from those rural counties, districts, who are also against the gerrymandering.
Yeah.
They are like, we don't want this, because they understand the economic impact to them.
Yep.
Where they're trying to sell this idea that this enlarging your district and getting more control of the house will give you more of whatever. And the bottom line is, they're looking at the district that they're in and the representation that they have that has done nothing for them so far anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then now you want us to share in a larger pool, expecting us to believe that we'll get a larger share.
Right.
And which the math ain't mathing.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm wondering, how are these politicians able to get away with this? And then also, I was reading today, I was going through, there have been Supreme Court rulings on gerrymandering.
Yeah.
And there has been rulings that it is unconstitutional. We have a census for a purpose.
Right.
And the census is so that we can identify these districts with data.
Yeah.
And not with, we need representation.
Yeah.
So there's no data that shows that this needs to be done. But nobody's even able to get the court system to rule on this.
Yeah, it's it's an incredible thing for any political party to have full control over really all the branches of government at this point, and then have a conversation about checks and balances. You know, consensus is one thing. Consensus is good. It's a form of agreement, but it happens after everybody's able to provide input. Obedience is something else.
Yeah.
And so when you have obedience, you have agreement without cause. And so this is when you get in a situation like you were describing, like some of these Republican lawmakers in the state of Missouri are realizing like, hey, okay, if you draw my district bigger, that's good for the party, but now I'm going to have to take responsibility for that. And so the idea here is that the responsibility is going to grow, but the resources are not. And so, yeah, great. You take over all the districts, you maintain control of the House, but then you become ineffective as a leader, as a politician in your district, because you're not able to achieve the needs of the people in that particular area.
What's going to be interesting too is I don't think that they're accounting for, if you add these districts that are predominantly Democratic, the fact that there could be a flip to a Democratic district because you've moved this gigantic piece over, and you're not in a district that is 100% Republican.
Right.
So you're bringing in an opportunity for the Democratic constituents in that district to build, and then you have Republicans that don't feel that this is a good idea. So this still could backfire 100%.
It could, yeah. The assumption here is that white rural voters are primarily or mostly Republican. And I know that is stereotypically that is the case, but realistically, is that the case?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And especially considering that we do have larger metropolitan swaths across the state of Missouri, especially around the universities, that's going to change those outcomes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Columbia, Springfield, those two cities are in two different districts as far as the new drawings go.
Yeah.
Well, that's a problem. They could become what Kansas City is, for example, in Jackson County, but just across a wider space.
Yeah.
And then what happens? But I will say this: if they do go through with the redrawing, if any one of those redrawn districts turns out to turn blue, then it is an interrogation of this philosophy that Republicans are putting across the whole state, and their belief that all of these people are actually Republicans.
Yeah.
And so once you come to that realization, then what?
Yeah.
Do you let it go? Are you gonna force people to move out of their house and move into a different district? Like what are you gonna do then?
Yeah.
If one of these districts or more than one of these districts turn blue. And also I just need to say that the fact that they left St. Louis.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you, clever stuff. The only reason they did that was because they don't want to be responsible for it.
Yeah.
They don't want to be responsible for it, and they need to have a reason to say, see, Democrats can't deal with crime, et cetera, et cetera. So it's totally political, and it has nothing to do with the actual people. And that's where we have a problem, whether it's a Democratic situation or a Republican situation. When you lose sight of the needs or the interests of the people, then it's a failure at that point, no matter who's at the helm.
And, and it has been said that it is, and it's the truth, it is not just a partisan problem. what we are seeing across our country now is a bipartisan violent situation. And I'm just going to touch base on yesterday's assassination and how the interesting thing was how quickly it was compared to the civil rights movement time, and how John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Robert F. Kennedy were all assassinated in the 60s. And this is a resemblance of this. And yes and no. Yes, because there is rhetoric that is being repeated to stereotype or even fearfully, or to bring fear to fanatics, because even most everyday people listening to rhetoric are not going to be fanatical enough to go out and plan an assassination and hurt someone. And anyone, and let me make it clear, anyone whose life is taken by the hands of another human being is totally wrong.
Yeah.
There is no excuse for it. There's no endorsement for it. There's no justifying it. Everyone should have a right to their own voice, and under the First Amendment rights, freedom to speak what they feel, whether it's agreeable or not. So let me make that clear in that disclaimer. But what I do find very, very disturbing is when this happens, we tend to forget that you too have caused some level of violence, a large level of violence in the U.S. Because of your rhetoric.
Yeah.
And because you continually want to play the blame game. And so, and then I'm listening to a lot of the commentators and a lot of the radical movement podcasters out here who are threatening war and all that.
Yeah.
Gerrymandering is just a small piece of what's going on in America. And what I hate to think of, but I know this to be right because I grew up during civil rights.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen the movement. I've seen where we came from, where we came to, and where we are today. And I can tell you what, absolutely, you don't want to bring it like you think you want to bring it.
Yeah.
Because the people are different now. The communities are not the communities of the 60s and 70s. Yes, we had the Black Panthers that were armed, but we're armed differently today.
Yeah.
And it's a sad, sad time in America when our children are bearing arms and our leaders are saying, if you're a certain class and status, you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not, you're a criminal. So I'm just putting out there that this thing is bigger than gerrymandering, but we should be aware of that being a pathway or a part of them more and more taking our voices. And it all goes back to our inability to show up.
Yeah.
Because we've given up so much of our rights just by not showing up. We don't show up to the polls. We love to talk about it. We love to sign up and register to vote, but on the day of the actual vote, we're not showing up at the polls. And so our voices are stifled.
Mm-hmm.
And shame on us because we have people to die so that we could have a voice and we don't use it. So now we want to have a voice.
Right.
So
yeah, people saw those lines during the election, and the line was more powerful than their interest in voting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I stood out there for, I want to say 4 hours, maybe 4 hours.
Yeah.
Just to put in a vote. It took me 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just the nature of the beast.
It is. It truly is. However, I don't think the American people believe that we are going to be in a situation like some of these countries that, votes mean nothing. You know that they're talking about now taking away the electronic ballots.
Yes. Yeah. And the mail-in.
And the mail-in.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to get rid of any innovation. We're going to get rid of any technology that can be more accurate than having a person sit and count, because then that way we can control and discard and get rid of what we want to, and nobody be the wiser.
And that's interesting because, I was in the military, and the way I voted all years in the military was through mail-in ballot, because I was always forward deployed. I was stationed abroad.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm wondering, what they're going to do now for like all the service members who are abroad, and even the folks in the government, like people who work for the State Department and the Department of Commerce and all these other agencies that have people all over the world. Do they need to fly back to America to vote?
Put in a vote, yeah.
And, it's just, it is interesting to think about. And what really fascinates me about that entire conversation is this. If there was a belief that the election process was rigged or flawed in any way, whatever it was, but then you won. So
it was right.
Yeah. So did it become unflawed for you to win, and then after you won, it's flawed afterwards again? The logic doesn't make sense, but and it's clearly just an attempt to maintain control. You know what I mean? And so you always beware anybody who's trying to cling to power.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's when you start to get in trouble.
That's an interesting thing to even bring up. A lot of people won't discuss it, but I find it very troubling when all signs point to the death of democracy and the birth of dictatorship in America. When you are basically stacking the deck where you have anything you say, anything you do is controlled by your narrative, what you say, how you say it. You threaten the news, you threaten the legislators, you threaten everybody around, and nobody has anything to say about that.
Right. Yeah. And it is. And, I wrote a paper years back, and just so anyone listening knows, I'm former military. I'm a former intelligence officer with 2 different spy agencies for the U.S. government. In total, I served in the government for 20 years, and, I'm a PhD candidate. So I've been doing the work.
And I want to say thank you.
Thank you. When I was in China, I wrote a paper called "The Weight of Democracy," and it was my experience in China that made me start to think of democracy as having a weight limit. And so the idea that I came up with was that, there's a correlation between population size and socio-political or socio-economic standing. And if we look at a line graph, there's a box in the middle that is democracy. And if the population rises too much, you get out of that box. If the socioeconomic or the political situation declines, you fall out of the box as well. And so as long as you can maintain that box, I think democracy becomes a viable option. But you looking at countries like China, for example, where it may not be possible for this country to have like a democracy, I guess, in the Western sense, without having the country fracture into 15 different countries through civil war. And as a matter of fact, almost every country that adopted democracy immediately had a civil war after its adoption, including the United States.
Yeah.
And so, it could be a situation where we are reaching one of those weight limit points, and it has to do with like our population and our socioeconomic and political situation, which includes our social standing.
Yeah.
And, you know, we are a divided nation.
Totally.
And that is America. And people seem afraid to come to terms with that. America is not we were all together or we are all together, or that's not what America is. America is division. America is hyper emotional. America is hyper aggressive. That's what we are. That's who we are as a people. And it's those characteristics that actually make us effective everywhere else in the world. That's why we won so many wars, we're tough, and all that kind of stuff. And it is that same characteristic that causes us an inability to come to agreements at home. And it's a crazy thing. We're some of the smartest people in the world. We're some of the most articulate. We have the highest levels of education. You know, we have ways to communicate with each other across the widest swaths of land, transportation. We have all this development as the leader of the world, but we cannot agree. And it reminds me of it was a book and they made a movie out of it. It's called The Hitchhiker's Guide to Outer Space. And, you know, it's about space, aliens and stuff, like a comedy. And in this universe, they found a fish, a tiny fish, that if you put it in your ear, you could understand the language of anybody else in the entire universe. So they thought that it was a huge breakthrough. But years later, they discovered that like 90% of the wars that had happened in the universe after the discovery of the fish that helped people talk to each other, 90% of the wars was actually caused by the fish. Yeah. And to me, that's like America. It's like we have the ability to talk and to rationalize and to agree and to be peaceful, and we just don't do it.
Wow. Well, that's all we have for this episode today. And straight from the heart, again, we're not going to pull any punches. We're not going to sugarcoat or walk on eggshells. We're going to tell it like it is.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to say this, though. Remember, our strength is in unity, though.
Absolutely.
There's always safety in numbers.
Yep.
And we at Heartland Black Chamber of Commerce, we're the conveners of inclusivity. And in order for us to make a change, we're going to have to become inclusive. So I'll see you on the next episode. Be ready to welcome Khalid back, because we're going to come back often as possible. And we're going to talk about all types of things. And hopefully in our next episode, we will move along into some other more deep conversations. I'd like to do people, pastors, and politicians.
Okay.
But until next time, see you later. And thanks for joining us.